Hi everyone, welcome to Lost in My Library. My name is Kate. Today I am doing a books I read in college that I recommend part 2. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of people whose work I think is really important that I don't hear talked about very often on BookTube. And so yeah, especially one of them. One of them is talked about a little bit because of the TV show, but the other one, I think her work is very important. Just because of the subject matter and just how she writes, and it's hard, but like it's so good. It's so good. You must read her as well. And then I'm going to recommend some poetry because why not? And I'll have to pull out my anthologies for that, and they're sitting over there. So I haven't actually looked up those, so there is that. Anyways, let's move on to the one that is more well known, and it's because of the TV show that this person has for one of her books, and that is Margaret Atwood. I read The Handmaid's Tale in Women's Lip. I've looked at other books that she's written, and I haven't read them yet. And I'm really excited about the Testaments that is coming out this year. It seems like she writes some really hard-hitting books. And if you haven't read The Handmaid's Tale, read it, especially if you've seen the show. Because, oh my goodness. Even if you know, like, everything that's going to happen here, and I highly doubt that they've made it to the historical notes that are at the back of this book. The historical notes will mess you up. I'm not joking. They will mess you up. I don't know how far the show has gone in the story and how much they've added, but I think you should read The Handmaid's Tale, and I will give more recommendations about her later when I've read more of her books. But I would love to read. I think she's going to be an auto buy for me. I love Margaret Atwood. The next one is definitely an auto buy. I need to read more of her because there's so many and it's so good. Okay, moving on. Okay, so the next person I read 2 novels of hers in college. One in Intro to Literature, and then the other one in Women's Lit. And I think she writes so important stories that are hard, but like they're historical fiction. Actually, if you want to read, I think these are technically historical fiction, with bits of magical realism. And that's gonna be the kicker, is that a lot of people say they hate magical realism, but like when I hear that, I'm like, ow. But Toni Morrison, like, you just haven't read Toni Morrison, it seems, because she's so good. I love Toni Morrison, and I've read 2 books by her. I'll start with my Intro to Lit book, and that was A Mercy by Toni Morrison. They're both by Toni Morrison. So, so A Mercy is about primarily, I forgot what her name is. This one girl. Both of them are about slavery, and both of them are about motherhood. And the problems of being a mother in slavery during the time. But this one is about a daughter having mother issues, and the other one is about a mother having issues. So, A Mercy is about a girl who is sent away, bought by this man named Jacob, and Jacob is actually a nicer slave owner. He's, I mean, you like him, he's okay. He's a slave owner, but he treats the slaves well. That's no excuse. There shouldn't have been slaves in the first place. But at least Jacob wasn't terrible to his slaves in this book. Both these books deal with slavery, so if you can't deal with slavery, I'm sorry. But, like, also, you should read Toni Morrison. It's so good. What is her name? Oh my gosh. What is her name? Oh my gosh. What is the main character? Oh wow. I didn't know there was a map in there. Uh-huh. What is her name? Oh man, the ending also just messed me up too. It was so good. What is her name? Oh my gosh. What is this girl's name? It's not on the back. Florence. Okay, her name is Florence. Oh my gosh, her name's Florence. I'm so sorry, Florence. I was about to have to like go on the internet because I was like, I'm not seeing it anywhere. Her name is Florence. And it's a multiple perspective book. I don't think it's hard to realize that at first. So if anybody was wanting to read this, I might do a like before you read kind of need to know, or maybe not. You just kind of, I read this in college, and I knew the perspectives and who was talking because my professor told me, I think. Anyways, it's a really good book. Highly recommend. The other one is much harder to read. The other one is Beloved. Beloved is about a slave woman who, in the beginning, we know that she had a daughter named Beloved who died very gruesomely. We don't know how in the beginning. And that baby's ghost, Beloved, is haunting the house that she lives, and she's kind of going insane. And she has a daughter, and I think her daughter's name is Dallas. I forgot. Oh my gosh. Setha is the main character's name in this book. Yeah, right? Yeah, Setha. And it's just the story of Setha coming to terms with the death of her daughter, and Also pushing away the ghost of beloved, who turns out to be real, so that's where the magic realism comes in. And there's a bit more of it in here. Not so much in A Mercy. There's not a whole lot of magical realism in A Mercy, but there's a lot more in Beloved. And I really enjoyed it. If you don't like magical realism, I think Beloved is the right book to read if you don't like magical realism. So, and I think her work is very important, and I'm really sad because she's becoming older, and I want her to publish one more novel before she dies. Please don't die on us yet, Toni. I love you. Please don't die on us. Also, she's a beast. Like, she's great. Honestly. My professor told a story once where she was at a conference where Toni Morrison was speaking. And so after Toni Morrison gave her presentation, she had a Q&A session for, everybody that was there. And one guy who had like a note card with a question that he had obviously written before the conference came up, and it was like, he was obviously a grad student. Like, he had this question, and he asked her this question. It was long, and there was long words, and blah, blah, blah. It was just like, okay. And Toni Morrison just looks at him, and she's like, this is why I don't like academic criticism or something like that, or being asked questions like that, and then just doesn't answer the guy's question. Oh, she's great. There comes a point of like you needing to figure it out on your own, and the author telling you certain things. Toni Morrison's just like, you read it how you read it. Yep. Anyways, so that's Toni Morrison for you. She's alright. With my Norton anthology, this is the Victorian age. This is supposed to be Ophelia from Shakespeare, Hamlet. So the first book, first poet I'm going to recommend, and that is Robert Browning, because a lot of his poems read a lot just like dialogue, and I just find Robert Browning really, really easy to read. So I'm going to read one of his poems, and it's a dramatic monologue. I think what's interesting is that he has a book of poems that is a murder mystery, and I really, really want to read it so bad, because I was just like, yes. And I also really like Robert Browning. I think he's my favorite poet of all time. So this one's called My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. For Margaret, this is who's speaking. Thus my last duchess painted on the wall, looking at as if she were alive, I call. That piece of wonder now, Frau Pandolf's hands, worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will't please you sit and look at her, I said. Frau Pandolf, by design, for never read. Strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and great passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none but by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if durst, how such a glance came there, so not the first. Are you to turn and ask thus? Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek, perhaps. Frau Pandolf's chance to her mantle lapse over my lady's wrist too much, or paint half flush that dies along her throat, such stuff. Was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough. For calling up that spotted joy, she had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad. Too easily impressed, she liked whatever. She looked on, and her looks went everywhere. So 'twas all one, my favorite at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule. She rode with round the terrace, all in each, which would draw from her alike the approving speech. Or blush at least, she thanked men good, but thanked I know how, not how, as if she ranked my gift of 900 years old name with anybody's gift who stooped to blame. This sort of trifling, that's the word, with this sort of trifling, even had you skill in speech which I have not, to make your will quite clear to me such a one, and say just this, or that, and you disgust me, here you miss, or there exceed the mark, and if she let herself be lessened, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, and then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop, oh sir, she smiled no doubt, whenever I pass her, but who pass without. Much the same smile this grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. There she stands, as if alive. Will it please you rise? We'll meet the company below, then I repeat, the Count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dower will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed, at starting is my object, nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice snapped him, though, taming a seahorse, though thought a rarity, which claws of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. So, I don't know if you picked up, I will tell you what the poem is about. So it's about a boy who is a servant to another man whose daughter is possibly going to marry this man. And he's showing him this painting of his last wife. And basically is kind of like showing his cards at this point. And showing that if the daughter doesn't, do what he says, he's gonna kill her. Or he's gonna have her killed. That's what happened to the last lady. Yep. It's pretty much that poem. Like I said, it's a dramatic monologue, but he has a lot of poems that are conversations between people. I just find Robert Browning a very interesting person. The next person caught my eye with the name of one of his poems, but I really came to enjoy his poems, and he's not a very well known, or it's not really talked about poet, it seems like, other than in literature. And so this is an American poet, 1914 to 1945. And his name is Wallace Stevens. And I'm going to read you the poem that caught my eye the title caught my eye before I started reading him. It's called The Emperor of Ice Cream. Okay. Call the roller of big cigars, the muscular one, and bid him whip. And kitchen cups, concupiscent curds. Let the wenches dawdle in such dress as they are used to wear. And let the boys bring flowers in last month's newspapers. Let be finale of seam. The only emperor is the emperor of ice cream. Take from the dresser of deal, lacking the 3 glass knobs, that sheet on which she embroidered fantails. Once in, spread it so as to cover her face. If her horny feet protrude, they come to show how cold she is and dumb. Sorry. let the lamp affix its beam. The only emperor is the emperor of ice cream. I think he's just an interesting person. I enjoy his poems. Yeah, I think he's a really good poet. And considering I didn't like poetry, these two people really, really stood out to me. And another book I read, I don't know where it is. It's called Domestic Work, and I can't think of who wrote it. It's by a person of color, and I just thought of it, and I don't know where my book is. I think I had it up here at one point, but anyways, it was good poetry, but like I didn't like and I didn't appreciate poetry as much as I do now when I read Domestic Work. But I also recommend that as a book by someone of color. So yeah. And that is my second part to books I recommend that I read in college, and also poets that I read in college that I really enjoyed, for people who don't read as much poetry and don't like poetry as much as other people. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a comment. Tell me anything. What are you reading? I would like to know. I'm reading Silent Night by Danielle Steele. I'm actually almost finished with that book. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe down below, turn on notifications, leave a like on the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys. Mwah.